Just came in by boom tube, thanks to the good old mother box there. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of In the Library of Graphic Literature with your host, me, Wallace. Today, of course, way out here in the North Atlantic on this island we live on called Newfoundland, unfortunately the new comics didn't come in today or yesterday, and it's looking now like it'll be next week. So next week actually should be a great week because I'm going to have a huge episode because I'll have 2 weeks worth of books in at the same time. So I was stuck with no books to talk about, at least no new books. So I decided, hey, let's do a little bit of chit-chat about some old classics, and in particular, let's talk Marvel Masterworks. So I got a stack here of actually one of my favorite series from the Marvel Masterworks series, and that is the Marvel Masterwork volumes of Doctor Strange. Dun, 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 dun. You like? What? How can you not like? So of course this starts out, this is volume 1. This of course starts out with the great Steve Ditko and his work. I really loved it, especially the origin story that Ditko did for him. Absolutely stunning. Ditko, he just boggles the imagination. I always loved, for some reason right from the start I fell in love with his style. There was just something about it that was just so cool. I can't really say what it is. Ditko is one of these unfathomable things in the comic book art world. He's just naturally great. So yeah, so this is volume 1, of course. Volume 1 contains Strange Tales from 110 to 141. At the time it was a bit of a backup feature in Strange Tales, which it shared with the Human Torch and the Thing for a while, and then Nick Fury. But so I mean, he originally didn't start out with his own title. Strange Tales eventually did become Doctor Strange, and that I do believe happens. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. Well, he more or less starts to take over in the second volume here. It really starts to take over the Strange Tales itself. His name gets bigger, that type of thing. Now this is volume 2. This is Strange Tales 142 to 168. So this includes the Ditko's last work with them. I actually did buy the Doctor Strange omnibus just because it had all the Ditko stuff all in one big volume, which was kind of sweet. So this has the last of the Steve Ditko era. And then it has the fill-in issues, as I call them, from Bill Everett, Marie Severin, and Danny Atkins, which, you know, it's okay. Here we go. This is the last of the great Steve Ditko's work. I love this, him facing eternity. That was so cool. Well, so then Bill Everett takes over, and you know, Bill is serviceable if you're still in the golden age. And Marie Severin, you know, she was serviceable enough. I kind of liked her style. And then Dan Atkins, who was sort of not too bad. I've never been a huge Dan Atkins fan. Something almost a bit too staid about it. So, but Still, you know, not bad in terms of Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange always has, for some reason, I don't know why, he's always been one of my favorite of the Marvel characters. I don't know what it is. It's just he seemed really cool. Here, now we get into volume 3 of the Doctor Strange, which has Doctor Strange from 169 to 179. This really is where he takes over Strange Tales. Strange Tales actually becomes Doctor Strange, and they continue on the numbering from there. The great thing about this book is that it has the last of the Dan Atkins. There's a I think there's even a Tom Palmer in here issue, and you know they're not bad and all that. But then starting with, I think it was starting with. Let's see here now. Yeah, it was starting with issue 172 of Doctor Strange. Was when genial Gene Colan took over the art chores. Ditko, like I say, he really launched off Doctor Strange. He really gave it everything to go, and like I say, languished for a couple of issues, but then as soon as Gene Colan took over, it just started to take off again. Without doubt, I'd say after Steve Ditko, without doubt, Gene Colan was my favorite. I had just about every single one of these issues growing up in singles. I absolutely loved them. I don't like using the word floppies. It sounds kind of rude. So yeah, some really great artwork. I absolutely adored Gene Colan. A great panel design. He had what it had to do Doctor Strange. I find Doctor Strange, compared to a lot of other comics, really does rise and fall on the artist. You really have to be someone very good to, I think, to handle this character. This is actually one of my all-time favorite covers here, the Doctor Strange, Hail the Master. I know a lot of people didn't like this new Doctor Strange with the new mask and all that, but to be quite honest, I always kind of thought it was kind of cool. Nice and mysterious. And then it goes along. And this one actually ends off with an Avengers issue, which I guess sort of finishes off the story, whatever, for that. And now, so then, unfortunately, the good old Doctor was cancelled at that point in the comics, and he would languish a little bit. He made appearances in Submariner, Incredible Hulk, and Marvel feature #1. Yeah, I guess it first appeared with the first Defenders. I think that was. Let's have a look here. Okay. So yeah, there's still a few of the old Gene Colans in this, including some of my personal favorites. These I just absolutely loved it, especially this panel here. My God, I mean that's some great comics. So anyway, we go along into the Gene Colan for a bit more Gene Colan. Oh, I can remember getting that. I had that when I was a kid. Great comic. So I don't know how many of you out there are Gene Colan fans, but the guy was just so cinematic, so darn cool. So then, like I say, went into it was cancelled, and you know, he appears here and there throughout different things over the years. Then he actually returns in Marvel Premiere #3, and this really starts his rise again. Ironically enough, this was actually written, or at least the scenario was laid down by Stan Lee, and then the plot, everything else was taken over by Barry Smith, soon to be named Barry Windsor Smith, who was very well known for his work on Conan, and I was a huge Barry Smith fan, so I love this this particular issue. I got this one when I was a kid. I loved it, and I picked up the next issue, which was also was actually written by Archie Goodwin, but it was drawn by Barry Smith and Frank Brunner, who at the time was sort of a newbie too. But I mean, I kind of like this Brunner guy's stuff, and so continued along. And then they had a few other fill-in issues here and there. I think Sterling did one. I think there was even some P. Craig Russell work. You know, all of which was perfectly serviceable and decent enough artwork. Here we go. Yeah. Frank Brunner, P. Craig Russell, that was it, who did number 7. Jim Starlin did number 8. And then, so that's that volume there. On to the next volume. And it was shortly after that Brunner took over the reins of Doctor Strange altogether. And his run was absolutely stunning. I was a huge Frank Brunner fan by this point. I liked his work on Howard the Duck, everything like that. And he was followed, strangely enough, same with Howard the Duck and on this title, by Gene Colan, who returned to continue the work that he had done on Doctor Strange. So here we go. This is inked by Ernie Chan or Chua, so it's different. Here we go. Inked by the Krusty Bunkers. This one's an amazing, amazing comic. Still love this one. So it goes along. There's a few great issues of Brunner artwork. Definitely well worth picking up. And then basically they start. This truly is the first Doctor Strange number 1, and basically they restarted the whole thing again. In particular, of all the comics in here, this one I really remember. I think this was the summer I cut open my foot, so I wasn't allowed basically to go out into the woods or go water skiing or have fun with anyone that found me, so I was stuck in the cabin reading comics for the whole summer, and this was one of my favorite. As a matter of fact, I have this one, I think, on a t-shirt. But Brunner, he's absolutely stunning run on it. And then, I mean, if they could top it, somehow they did by bringing back Gene Colan. And Colan's second run on it was slightly different, but still I loved it. And especially the Gene Colan and where he's inked by Palmer. Some of the better ones. Now he continues to ink. I do believe pencil. He did this, just about this entire volume 6, just about all of volume 6, except for Alfredo Akela and Rudy Nebrez stepped in for a couple of issues there. I guess someone had to give him a break. But this book contains surely one of my all-time favorite Doctor Strange stories. And remember how I said it takes a special artist to do Doctor Strange? Well, here we go. This I do believe, this is P. Craig Russell back at it again. He's given another shot here at the good old Doctor, and what a change in his artwork between this and the last time he did it. There's just something about Russell. He just gets Doctor Strange. And plus his artwork is just absolutely gorgeous. This is, I can still remember buying this comic as a kid and reading it, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. Oh, and here is the Rudy Nebrez, another guy I liked. So yeah, another great book. Definitely well worth it. Let's see, we're getting close to the end here now. Oh, and this was this is volume 7. With volume 7, basically Gene Colan only does two issues in this, 36, 37, the last 2 in it. This actually has some great work by Tom Sutton, Jim Starlin, Ricardo Villamonte. I actually like the Jim Starlin stuff. Now it was inked by Rudy Nebrez, so it's, in a lot of ways, it's kind of hard, unless you really know your Jim Starlin, it's actually kind of hard to tell that it is Jim Starlin. But to someone like me who's a huge Jim Starlin fan, this just screams Starlin to me, even through the Nebrez inks. And this is one where Al Milgrom and Pablo Marcos did the artwork, and then more Starlin, then Tom Sutton. I kind of like Tom Sutton's Doctor Strange too. He had a really wild and wacky type of Doctor Strange. This is one of my favorites too of his. Was this issue number 30? Absolutely stunning. Great piece of work. I think Tom Sutton is one of the most underrated of all the comic book artists from the 70s. Amazing, absolutely amazing person. And then a couple more Gene Colan back here. And let's see, and now last but not least, the very latest in the Doctor Strange Marvel Masterworks. This has, again, more work from Gene Colan. He was back on it again for a while. He has it here, 38 to 45. Mike Golden was on it here. Don Perlin, not bad. Marshall Rogers and Tom Sutton. Marshall Rogers, to me again, was one of these people, like Craig Russell, like Gene Colan, like Brunner and all that. He was one of these people who just had the Doctor down perfectly. Now this one too, this one's pretty cool because it's actually inked. It's Marshall Rogers inked by P. Craig Russell, the master. So it's absolutely stunning. Some of the other books I like a little bit better, but this still has some cool stuff in it. And like I say, being a Doctor Strange fan, I just had to go for it. Okay, I did have one or two other things. Yeah, I figured, okay, I'll take out and go through quickly another one of my favorite series. This one only has 2 volumes in it, but it's the Inhumans. And this is, I've always been a huge fan of the Inhumans. This actually starts with the backup stories from the back of the issues of Thor, and goes right on through there. There's a Gene Colan there, a Medusa story, which is kind of neat, kind of different. And then we go back to to one of the few times in which Jack Kirby actually wrote, as it says in there, he wrote and drew this. I love the Amazing Adventure Inhumans because it's Kirby stuff. It's cool. And then, and this is about around the time I guess he left for DC, and to pick someone to take over from him, did they ever pick someone great? So they picked Neil Adams here. I can still remember to this day buying this comic as a kid and as a back issue, and I absolutely adored it. I was a huge Adams fan. This is one of my favorites. It's the best of it. I think John Verpoeten and other people inked him after, and it just still wasn't good. This one also has this here, yeah. Now this one is pretty good because this one wasn't too bad, even though it was Verpoeten. And then there's a Sikowski there, and that wasn't that great. And then here back to Adams. This is from the Avengers, but it involves the Inhumans, but it was pretty cool. And so the last thing here for today we're going to look at is the Inhumans Volume 2. This came out in '75, a few years later, and it was from Doug Moench wrote the stories, and it has some great art by George Perez and Gil Kane. And it's funny, and also too, was Pollard, I think, took over after that. But this was one of my favorite mid-'70s comics from Marvel. Here we start out with George Perez, Frank Chiaramonte, and Perez did a few issues of it, and a great job he did. So he did a few issues right up until 5 when Gil Kane took over. And of course I'm a huge Gil Kane fan, so I mean I was hooked. So he had a nice run on it. Eventually, like I say, it was taken over by Pollard, and it wasn't bad, but it just never really got to the heights that I think the Inhumans had reached in some of their earlier stuff. So that's it for this week's episode. I love just yakking on about these Marvel Masterworks. They're all beautiful. Oh, love these books. And who doesn't love a good Marvel Masterworks? So next week, big pile of books for next week. So stay tuned, keep reading books, and I'll see you in the comic book store. Meanwhile, it's time to take Mother Box out of here. my god, I can feel the boom tube coming. Oh my god, there it is right behind the camera sucking me into. Bye!